Welcome to all of you. Very happy to be here with you today. My name is Eduard van der Haas. I'm a Market Intelligence Program Manager at CBI, and I will be your host for today's webinar on going green in natural ingredients, practical steps for exporters to meet European market expectations. I'm going to start with a few practical remarks regarding this webinar. You can see on your screen that we cannot hear or see the audience in this session. So you still have, though, the possibility to interact with us throughout the questions tab that you see on your screen. This is important as we will consult these questions and answer a selection of them at the end of our session of today. And please also keep in mind that you to look back and share this webinar, as it will be published shortly on our website. We will also send you at the end of the webinar a short survey in order for you to give us your feedback on this session. And lastly, if you have any technical or audio problems during the session, we advise you to switch to the phone call modus to solve the problem. So, first of all, the topic of today, going green in natural ingredients, practical steps for exporters to meet European market expectations. I'm very happy that we have two good presenters today for you and also two good speakers we've invited. Our two presenters will be Bert-Jan and Gustavo from Profound Advisors in Development. Bert-Jan is the founder of Profound, and he has a large experience in bringing target groups together to make supply chains sustainable and transparent. And Gustavo is a market researcher and an expert in natural ingredients for health products and natural food additives. They will both converse and exchange thoughts on going green with two influential European companies specialized in sourcing natural ingredients. Michel Goldbach, on one side, the founder of Dutch Essentials. He is a key importer of natural extracts and a flavor house specialized in vanilla extracts for the food and beverage industry. And our second guest speaker of today will be Jörn Herman. He is the managing director of Reuper, an influential German buyer and distributor of natural ingredients from all over the world. For example, natural gums from Africa, but also wear gum, carrageenan, and beeswax from India, China, Indonesia, and the Philippines. Next slide, please. To zoom in on the agenda of today, we will start with a short intro about CBI. And then Gustavo will talk to you about the context of the most important sustainability factors and trends in natural ingredients for food additives. And he will then move on to the second part of the webinar with Bert-Jan, the conversation with our two European importers, Dutch Essentials and Reuper, who will guide you through the European expectations in terms of sustainability and also the concrete process of going green as an SME. The last 10 minutes of the session will be to go through your questions. So again, please use the questions tab to send us your questions and interact with us. So starting from my side with a short presentation of our CBI organization. As a lot of you already know, CBI stands for the Center for the Promotion of Imports from Developing Countries. We're part of the Netherlands Enterprise Agency, and we're funded and commissioned by the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Next slide, please. CBI was established in the early 1970s. We have now more than 50 years of experience in contributing to local sustainable economic development through exports. And we mainly focus ourselves in our mission on SMEs from emerging countries to build sustainable trade relationships with European buyers. And we also contribute directly to several sustainable development goals, such as decent work, economic growth, women and youth in SMEs, and we stimulate sustainable production and trade as we encourage partnerships for these goals. Next slide, please. To go through our geographical research and reach, we have ongoing projects in a total of 23 focus countries. As you can see on this map, we mainly focus ourselves on regions such as West, North, and East Africa, but also the Middle East region is important for us, as well as several projects in specific Asian countries like Bangladesh, Indonesia, and Sri Lanka. Next slide, please. We cover 13 specific sectors in total, based on a selection of dynamic and promising fields and industries, from fresh fruits and vegetables to tourism, but also from apparel to outsourcing, cacao, herbs and spices, and the most relevant for you, natural ingredients for food additives, and also ingredients for health products and food additives. Next slide, please. Important for you also to know is that we work with country projects that rely on several support solutions for SMEs and business support organizations, like, for instance, helping you on leading European trade fairs as exhibitors, but also throughout coaching programs with individual training, coaching and market entry support on different levels, like marketing, digitalization, strategic export development. And you'll see on the right side of your screen a few examples of current long-term projects that we have at the moment, such as Shea coaching project in Nigeria that we did, a Moringo project in Burkina Faso, a current woman empowerment project in Kenya, and currently also the launch of a Nilotica Shea Alliance that we're helping in Uganda. Next slide, please. Our network is also very important at CBI. It's based on quite a large range of partners. We reach our focus group of SMEs throughout a network of business support organizations, government and sector associations, but also NGOs, international certification authorities, and also here in Europe, we have a network of influential importers and international buyers, like our two guest speakers of today, Reuper and Dutch Essentials. Next slide, please. Most important for you to know also is that our main resource remains market intelligence, with easy access and free of charge studies that we offer on our website. So as you can see on the right side of the screen, that's our main landing page for natural ingredients, for food additives. We try to give you on that landing page the most practical answers about the European demand for natural ingredients, the buyer requirements, the European regulation, and we also give you concrete tips on that landing page to find practically buyers, practical tips also to develop your business, and we offer concrete product studies like aloe vera, baobab, hibiscus in product fact sheets. You will see the entire list of product fact sheets and studies on our market information portal. So please feel free to use it to settle your strategy to enter the European market. That's it for my side regarding the short intro about CBI. Keep also in mind that you can stay updated about our latest new studies and market publications if you join our social media canals like LinkedIn and Facebook, for instance. And you can also send me a mail directly. I will be happy to answer your potential questions if you send me a message. I'm now very happy to leave the floor to Gustavo and Bertion, who will exchange on going green in natural ingredients and guide you through practical steps to meet European expectations with Michel and Jörn, our guest speakers from today. Gustavo, welcome.
Thank you, Edward. Just to check, you can hear me?
I hear you
Can
very
see
well.
me?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'll just continue this general introduction on some of the framing for this session. Of course, we're going to hear much more about this subject from the speakers and also from the questions from you guys, from the audience. But just to give you guys just a frame of the discussion in this session, basically, we have a module in the research for natural ingredients for food additives called Going Green. So I'll just highlight a little bit the market drivers and also the impact and the possible implications and the tips for exporters in low and middle income countries, which we call developing countries in the context of CBI. Okay, going back to the subject, the main market drivers for going green, of course, starting from the end of the value chain, there is in Europe a higher consumer demand for natural and healthier food options, which require natural and healthier food additives also as part of the formulations of these food options and food products. Also, of course, from the consumer end, but also from the industry, more and more awareness of environmental impact of not only the consumption of food, but also the impact in terms of production processes, and also sourcing. So this is also an important market driver here in terms of going green in natural ingredients. And not to forget that a lot of these drivers, they're also coming from the regulatory framework of the European Union. We, in previous webinars and also through our studies, we speak a lot about the implications and the ramifications of the European Green Deal. So here we also see the manifestation of that in terms of a market driver, which is pretty much connected also with product development and innovation as a driver. Not only are companies trying to comply further with the regulatory framework in terms of healthier ingredients, also in terms of ingredients that do not have, for example, imported deforestation, etc., but also in terms of following market trends. For example, the emergence and also the increase in the market for plant-based foods. So we also see that that is impacting and is an important market driver in terms of the further demand for products that are greener. And that, of course, has an impact on not only the European industry, but also on suppliers that are working with the European industry. We see, as a result of the European Green Deal and also due diligence, etc., more and more pressure on companies and also a demand for sustainability reporting. That even though most of the times is an obligation of the European operator, this obligation of monitoring, measuring results, and also having impact indicators is also expected from suppliers. Of course, historically, we saw that food safety was a compliance aspect, and it was really important under legislation. And also, food companies had departments that were working in food safety. Nowadays, we see this integration between food safety and sustainability as being equally important in terms of compliance. Also, traceability and transparency in terms of sourcing and through the value chain, improved governance, improved systems to comply with legislation and also comply with industry expectations, reduction in agrochemicals, and also associated increase in organic agriculture, not only within Europe, but also expectations from suppliers outside of Europe, reduction in carbon footprint through the supply chain, no imported deforestation, which at first really affects the main commodities, but this is also an expectation for ingredients that go outside of the legislation from UEDR, like coffee, cacao, palm oil, etc. The expectation of no deforestation is also extended to other ingredients as well. And of course, circular economy in terms of the food supply chain, in terms of reducing food loss, improve waste management through the supply chain, and also environment-friendly packaging is an expectation from the industry and consumers. And last but not least, more information to consumers about the supply chain, but also about the footprint of a product on the environment. And what does it mean for suppliers in emerging economies in practice? So the module that we have published for CBI on the food ingredients, natural ingredients for food additives page, which I'll give to you guys in a second, really talks about some practical tips that suppliers can follow and the general areas of improvement in order to comply with these expectations from the European industry. So here we have, for example, supply chain transparency with internal systems or using external tools to do that. Certified, traceable, and deforestation-free ingredients. So really coming from complying with standards, but also in having sophisticated traceability systems and coming from deforestation-free areas. Nature positive, coming from regenerative agriculture and also net zero in terms of its carbon footprint. It's also an expectation, something that is increasing in terms of expectations from the industry. Also the integration of green principles in codes of conduct from companies. This is an important tip that really is integrated into sustainability policies. And as mentioned here, in how companies should be operating in terms of its suppliers and also in terms of its landscape. And of course, green processing technologies, I think we're going to hear this from our speakers as well, how they are dealing with this and also what they expect from suppliers. So not only the European industry, but also what can suppliers do in order to integrate green processing technologies in their supply chain. Green logistics, of course, a lower carbon footprint in terms of logistics, but also eco-friendly packaging, something to be discussed here and as a tip that we have in our module for going green. Circular economy practices, so reducing loss to the supply chain and upcycling ingredients and byproducts that are part of the main ingredient or the main product that we are looking at here. And of course, support, financial supports to go green. Going green is not easy for everyone, of course, and also implementing green processing technologies. So this module that we have published on the website of CBI, and also maybe some of these discussions we're going to have here revolve around how to finance the trajectory into going green. So this is a very short introduction as to what we'll be discussing in the next minutes, but I would like to leave you guys with the actual link to this module that inspired this webinar of this afternoon here in Europe, morning to some of you guys and evening to some of you guys. So you can find really the extended tips and also how to deal with going green in the context of your companies on this link that you can see below. And now I just yield the floor to Bertrand Ottens to start the facilitation and to translate all of that I gave you guys as possible indications on going green to the actual implementation of the panelists. So thank you so much, and I yield the floor to Bertrand Ottens.
Thank you, Gustavo. Thank you very much. Maybe also Michelle and Jörn, you can open up your cameras and your microphone so that we can start our panel discussion. Thank you much, Gustavo, for the elaborate summary of what's happening on the European market. You dropped a very interesting last point just at the final of your introduction, and that is about finance. And it was not in the initial questions, but it will certainly also be a topic that I'll be discussing with Michelle and with Jörn. I'm hoping that Jörn also at some point can manage to get the camera going. Otherwise,
otherwise it does not work.
Okay,
it does not work. I don't know why, but
okay.
Camera
never mind.
I don't know.
Never mind. The people can see your picture in the presentation.
Yeah, how young are you? I look. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. So for the audience, just as a bit of a framework, I've been working with CBI on and off for 35 years, starting with market analysis in the 90s and discussing a lot at the time on sustainability already in the 90s. And what I see happening is coming back more than ever, linked now to traceability and some other aspects. In that same perspective, from market analysis, I've been working with CBI in the early 90s on developing natural ingredients programs. The first programs were called on food and cosmetics and pharmaceuticals. Later, it was turned into health foods and health products because of potential clinical claims that you cannot make as a let's say, as a supplier of ingredients. In that same context, I've come across, in particular, also Röper in Germany, and based in Hamburg, with Jörn Hermann, already for more than 20 years, I guess, on and off, Jörn, I think. And we've always been...
Yeah,
48.
48 years.
Yeah, you've been in the business for 48 years.
But
yes.
we know us more than 20 years. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And you have very interesting stories to tell when it comes to discuss food additives. I mean, food additives is a very broad concept. And maybe we get to talk a little bit about it, but in your case, you're dealing with natural gums. We had a conversation on Kenya yesterday related to gum arabica and frankincense being used in cosmetics. But also cochinea and the other products. Maybe you can give a brief introduction of yourself?
Yeah, I can do. So to cut a long story short, yes, I'm 48 years in the business. I started as a product manager for natural products. So Röper is since 1891 active in all, mainly, I would say 95% mainly natural regrowing products. So all gums you can imagine and you may have heard of, like gum arabic, like gum oliban or frankincense, which both come mainly from Africa, also from India a little bit, but all over the world we source, since natural food ingredients have grown a lot. That is since 1970s, 80s, I would say. So products like agar from East Asia, from Chile, carrageenan from the Philippines and Indonesia, today refined mainly in China. Xanthan gum, where you may discuss is xanthan gum natural or not, but okay, it's also part of our portfolio. So we supply to customers then also worldwide, many in Europe. So import continent is mainly, I would say, Africa and Asia, also some partly South America, and sales is all over the world, but of course mainly Europe. I would say 70% of our sales is in Europe. We also sell to US. In Europe, our biggest market is Germany. We are also on the organic field, but I also told already Bert-Jan that we have not suppliers who are only 100% organic, because often it is not so easy for them to be organic certified. So most of the times they are traditional conventional suppliers, and then we ask them also with our customers if they can switch on part of the production to minimize their risk for organic certification. So we are also selling organic then, but from the, let's say, from the whole turnover, maybe that is 10-15%, not because we do not want it, but often the cost for certification, in particular in so-called third countries. So we always say third countries, which means practically countries which are not European Union. The certification inside European Union and to get organic products is usually easy, but to get it from third-party countries in Africa and Asia, in South America, it is certainly a more costly and more complicated process. So it's growing.
And I'm assuming that it relates to the registration of farmers and collectors in that sense.
Yes, they have to be registered, and I have to say, self-critical, European Union is not getting easy on that. The latest version of organic, let's say, procedures are making it more and more difficult for suppliers. The residual levels have to. I don't say that's not impossible, but it has become more complicated than before. Let's be honest. It is not. It's not. It's the standards have been driven up.
Can we dive a bit into that a bit deeper, because your company has been there in the business for a long time, and we are talking about going green. You've seen that within your company, you've seen that with your suppliers. Has that changed over time? Would you say it's just the regulations become more complex, or is there more to it when we talk about going green?
No, it has unfortunately changed. We have unfortunately lost suppliers who sell organic products not anymore to the European Union, but to third countries, to Japan or to US. So it is bizarre. Some of our suppliers have an NOP and organic certification according to European Union, and they say, okay, we have a limited production, we sell it to United States. And they stop the production for the European Union. Well, I don't know if all of you know, but if you stop it, then you have a 3 times lead time to be recertified again. And after 3 years, that's a long time. If you leave a market just for 3 years, then you're more or less out, I would say, because the customers will not take you seriously. Because our customers say, okay, did you not supply us from New Zealand beeswax organic a few years ago? What has happened? Well, I can tell you, the New Zealand people, and I talk about New Zealand. This is not a so-called developing country. New Zealand is like, I would say, their organic certification rules are stricter than European Union. They said, no, it's not worse for us. It is so costly. We prefer then to sell the small organic production we have to the United States. So, and unfortunately, this is also happening. So I can say that after the reviewing and the change of the organic rules from the European Union, it has a direct impact to suppliers. Well, and also to us, not only to Robert, but to our suppliers. And it is, we fight on it. Some of them can follow these rules, but it is a process which takes maybe years. So it's not just overnight that you say, oh, yes, we change it and drive down the residual levels or whatever. So it's not so easy.
But for you as a company, Jan, is it, do you translate, let's say, going green mainly as organic? Because you could think about
not only.
biodiversity.
The company, as I said, 85% of the turnover is natural. So that is a success story, because what Gustavo said when he started to talk, I agree, because the customers want to have it. The best would be vegan and vegetarian. Okay, most of our products are vegetable products, vegetable origin, except maybe one, and that's carmine, because carmine is an animal dye, but all the other products are regrowing. I would call them automatically green, because if you reproduce seaweeds in the sea, or if you reproduce gums from trees, or let's say like it is, dramatic like it is, a tree where you produce a gum from, you're not cutting it. Unfortunately, I can tell you here in this auditorium that unfortunately it happens. In Ethiopia, many of the gum olibanum trees were cut to burn them for fire. That, of course, is the opposite of sustainability, and we fight a lot with government. Ethiopia is difficult because the main production is in Tigray, that's in the north, and there's more or less a war running in this country. Okay, officially the war stopped, but the Tigray people, they left Tigray because the same unfortunately happens now in Sudan, in Darfur. Darfur is the main production area of gum olibanum in the world. Not many people know it, but they think it's olibanum comes from Somalia or Kenya. Forget it. The biggest producing olibanum trees are in Darfur. And in Darfur, what is running, if you look sometimes, PBC or whatever, serious press informations, it's hard to bear this. You have to switch your screen off. It is so horrible what happens. So the people run away there. So, but in natural gum, of course, as long as you don't cut the tree, it is sustainable, because if you do it the right way, every 3 years, not every year, you can tap a tree, because then you will kill a tree. But the same with gum arabic and gum olibanum. If you do it the right way, and the people, they know how to do it. Gum arabic comes from Kordofan. That's the neighbor region, the biggest region in the world. Kordofan is the same political problem like in Darfur, maybe not so bad, but it's similar. And then the next big area of gum arabic is Maiduguri in Nigeria, which is in the north, where you have a political problem with Boko Haram. So we are in the world of terror, we are in the world of violence, but unfortunately we have to continue, but we also have to face the facts. So
okay,
because this is going then to other countries, but let's say our products are positively seen by our customers. They are seen as green, and many of our food customers, mainly in Europe, also in US, I would say still, despite Trump, they still prefer to work with natural food additives, even if they are more expensive than synthetic ones, because, and even if they are not regional, so it takes modified starch. Modified starch is used as a replacement of gamma arabic, and modified starch is produced regional by the big starch companies. But what is the raw material? It is potatoes, it is rice, or whatever, which is of course locally produced. But even this, because of weather phenomena in all over the world, has increased a lot. So even if the natural products are more expensive for the final user, so any let's say Nestle or Unilever or whatever, they would prefer a natural product if it's what he was said, go green. They are green. If we can prove it is green, and if we can prove it even it's sustainable, then there's a good chance and there's a good outlook.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's sure.
Thank you, Jörn. I know we can talk for hours on these things.
Okay.
A brief summary, you're saying green is important related to natural. Funny thing is I hear that a lot when I travel in Africa. People say it's natural, so it's organic, so we should not, let's say, mix the things too much. But what you're saying, the natural aspect of the ingredients is crucial for your buyers, and they trust in what you're selling them. And whether or not organic has then a relationship with regulations which have become more complex. That's how I read your summary. And I think that this is not the first time that we hear that organic is becoming more cumbersome. It's even being discussed now in the European panel on the revision of the regulations, because it's killing SMEs, and that's certainly something to look into. And it's nice to hear that from you in practice. And I also hear you say that in terms of biodiversity and climate change and the firewood, is that your resources are under pressure. And that means that even more the ingredients become more valuable to your customers. Thank you so much. Also for the audience, if you have questions for Mr. Herman or for Mr. Gulbach, please put it in the chat box, and then CBI will later on reply to your questions with the panel later at the end of this introductions of the panelists. So Michelle, sorry, you were still a bit left out, but if you hear what Jörn Herman was discussing about his company, I know your company is a bit newcomer in the business. You told me yesterday you have a background in laboratory work, which means you're very well versed with, let's say, technical dossiers and the like. Maybe a bit of background on your company and why you started this?
Thank you, Bert-Jan. So my company, Dutch Essentials, was founded 5 years ago during COVID, which was maybe a very good time, maybe not, depends who you ask. For us, it was quite a good time to start. And initially, we actually started with the purification of eucalyptus oil, essential oil. And at that time, it was actually a very good start of the business, because most of the eucalyptus oil is coming from China. And at that time, there was a lot of transport issues, as we all remember. And there was actually, we found that there was no producers in Europe, not in substantial amounts. So we filled in that gap, and we had a very good start of the company. The only problem was when the transport issues were resolved, our business went down as quickly as it went up. So we had to make a split-minute decision as to should we proceed with this business or not. And luckily at that time we were already doing some experiments, some small scales on vanilla extracts, and we decided to stop the eucalyptus production and invest gravely into the vanilla extracts. So within this last 2.5 years, we scaled up the vanilla extract business, and we are now one of the major producers here in Western Europe with an output of 100 metric tons per year. And next to that, we also build a portfolio of natural flavors for the food and beverage industry. So our business is spanning the entire food and beverage industry. At this moment, we find our products in ice cream, in dairy, in bakery, in beverages, the same. We have sodas or distilled liquors. We are actually everywhere, and we are global. So most of our sales is export. We do have quite some business in the Netherlands. However, Netherlands is quite small. So in terms of volumes and turnovers, it's still most of the business is export. And we do a lot of import as well, obviously, because vanilla beans, they don't like to grow in the Netherlands, not even in the EU.
Sure, Michel, and when you're saying, hey, you start this business starting with eucalyptus, then now moving to vanilla beans, how does that translate when we talk about going green and sustainability and traceability? How does that work for your company? Are these important aspects for you to deal with suppliers?
Yes, definitely. I think going green, it's of course a very broad definition. And you get this question on audits as well. If we have a FSSC audit, they always ask, how do you manage going green or whatever? But it's a very subjective question. But if you start looking into it in depth, it is a very important question, because going green, it affects every aspect of your business, from the sourcing side, production side, to the packaging side and the shipping side. And if we look at the sourcing side, we prioritize direct partnerships, preferably. So we do not like to have 5 middlemen to do our sourcing. We want to do business directly with the supplier, the people with hands-on experience, the people who know their products and who can tell the background of the story. So by omitting the in-between traders, we are already reducing the length of the supply chain. Also there, it's much easier for us to get a grip on what the supplier is actually doing with their products, if they are following ethical and environmental responsible practices, and how do they manage, for instance, their pesticide use or biodiversity, or manage their water. And it's also,
do you also measure, for instance, carbon footprints and environmental data? I know that when I discuss with Jörn, it's often about resource management of the resource, the trees, and etc. Do you do similar?
Yeah, it's. I think for us it's slightly less because our products don't involve chopping down trees, so that's already good. But on the other hand, it is important, for instance, to manage water. So the resources for any natural products are necessary. So it's definitely directly needed to monitor this. We have, for instance, also in our natural flavors, we import fruit concentrates or whatever. Here it's much more critical to learn where is the product coming from. So yes, for us it's also very important to know this.
And if you say, because you mentioned FSSC, that's mostly for food safety, do you also use other standard certifications when you talk about traceability, going green?
Yeah, so organic certification is for us, it's also important. It's almost a must. And I completely agree with Mr. Herman that this certificate has been increasingly more difficult. So we first got the organic certification for the eucalyptus production 5 years ago, and we actually refiled for organic certification for our vanilla and flavors. And actually within this very brief period of time, the rules have changed so significantly that I was completely surprised how much more effort we had to put in when we filed for the certificate.
I can imagine. Yeah, I think you can agree with most of what Michel is saying there. Do you have other certifications that you use for traceability except for organic?
No, it's the
And
same.
by the way, nice to see you on camera now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm not a technical man, but I got it. No, the similar to what just Michael said. We also are FSSC 22000. We are also certified for GMP plus, but that's more for the that's not for the feed side. That's not for the food side.
It's
We
more
also
for the
supply to the
processing.
that's more for the feed, because some of our products like psyllium from India or like guar gum or like tarragon powder are also used in conventional in large volumes in the feed industry, and there you need a GMP plus certification. So that's what we also have. Sustainability, I had a short talk with you about that. We know that there are a lot of certification. We know all the companies who are serious, who are in it like UBT or whatever. There are some all over the world. In our opinion, we have not made our own for several reasons our own sustainable certification, because at the moment it's a little bit like a jungle. There are so many certifications which you may have on your website. They are very nice, but some of them is in our opinion greenwashing, and we do not want to be in the greenwashing area. It's very nice to have green products, but if your supplier in whatever, Peru, Africa, wherever he is, and us are in this view of greenwashing, and I tell you something, today the big blue chips of the industry, they are not so much anymore in our FSC certificates. Yes, this is a standard, like Michael and me, or like Michael and Roper, his company, our company, we have to show it. But they want to see our suppliers. The big companies go together with us to audit our suppliers. And if you tell any story and the story isn't found to be proved not true, you can put away all your certificates. So be careful. Whatever certification you are doing also in the sustainability area, and I think it's going to go onwards, even if it's a little bit slower now. The Green Deal is softened in the European Union. We have the phenomenon of Trump that the US Americans are saying this is all nonsense, but sooner or later it will continue. And the companies in US say they did not really change that. So the food companies, they are still on that. They are still on the same path. But your customers, let's say any blue chip, I don't know, L'Oreal is good example. L'Oreal is buying raw materials. They buy it not from us, but from friend companies, business. And they are not so much interested in us. They don't want to come to audit us and to see our laboratories and our FSCC. Sorry, they will ask for it. We send it, but they say, from where is the product coming? Yeah, it comes from Honduras. They will jump, or it comes from West Africa. They will jump with you and me or whomever it is into a plane, and they will control what you are telling them. So I only can say also for suppliers, so whatever you tell, whatever you certify, you will be bound to be proved. And if it's proved, and if it's true, let's say if it's good, not perfect. Nobody awaits that you are perfect. They will find things they will not like. It's no problem. But then they are very loyal customers. And yes, it is L'Oreal, I say it's cosmetic, and they are ready to pay a price for it, because sustainability and organic certification, of course, this costs money. I mean, you just said organic vanilla. I guess there's a big price difference between vanilla pots and organic vanilla pots, and there will be probably only a limited offer. I don't know how many vanilla pots are really organic, but I guess 10-20% maybe, and the rest. And there's a price difference. And there are companies, when they come, I mean, big company I remember was Coca-Cola, who bought vanilla pots many years ago, pure vanilla for their vanilla Coke. And I'm sure they have been to Madagascar and have seen what happens there. And they also have seen what is not happening. And then they will ask you, okay, Michael, how and when will you change it together with your partners in Madagascar? That is today's world. There's a lot of chances out of it. We have as Roper several customers, big blue chips, And frankly spoken, these customers who really go there with us, they don't discuss the price anymore. There is no discussion about, oh, is it more expensive and 10%, blah, blah. No, this is not the problem. The problem is your storyline true? Is your storyline proved on? And sometimes they go with you, for instance, to Africa, and you say, yeah, but that needs another 5 years to change this. And they understand it. They understand it. The European Union, by the way, does not understand it. This law which we have.
And it's an interesting point that you're raising, because the fact of what you're saying, where we see more certifications, more regulations, you're saying we're going, and I've seen the same in Biofach on the organic treat fair. It was similar. Yeah. I hear similar stories that people are saying we're going back to basics. It means that
it's a business concept, huh, Bert? It's a business concept. They sell certification. So I don't blame them for that they sell the certificate. The question is, what will be the certificates worth on paper? Is it really
from what Michel was saying, that reducing the number of intermediaries, is that the same for your business, Jörn?
Yes, absolutely. He's right. Our suppliers, exporters, something like that is not really important anymore. In some regions, yes, there are exporters, but we usually talk to the producers, to cooperativas sometimes, to exporters who are members of the cooperative. So that sometimes it's a team together, depends a little bit on the local thing, but we will go to a supplier with, let's say again, a company like L'Oreal, whoever it is, Coca-Cola, whoever it is. We will go to a producer and we would not visit with him an exporter. We would always, if the exporter and the producer is the same, that's the ideal thing. And he's right, that's coming nearer to us. And I also have to say, frankly spoken, many suppliers are not there anymore because they could not go this step. These exporters lost partly their importance. And so we have not more suppliers. We have less suppliers. But the suppliers we are having, we are very loyal to them, because it's not only your family and your friends or whatever you are. I can say a small story. When the COVID crisis was there, one of our biggest customers said in South Germany, the owners, not the purchasers, we learned something in COVID. I also learned, and I think we all learned. He said, in the past, we thought there are suppliers and they are customers. This is not of interest for us anymore. Now we know the only thing which is important to have partners. And partners, you know what partners mean? Partners means when the forest is burning, when there's an earthquake or whatever, or there is COVID-19, will be the supplier to give his best to at least to help. You cannot solve all problems. If the production is stopped, it's stopped. If there's no export. But I can tell you that we got products from China. Officially, the factories were closed. We got them in a crisis situation like 2020 and 2021. So you see, because some of these suppliers we know in the third generation. So this is family-owned companies. This is not big multinational companies, and they will fight for each and every kilo for you. And this is something we will never forget. They stood loyal to us. We will stay loyal to them. But as I said, the numbers of suppliers are less, but our volume per supplier has increased. That's
very interesting. I think for many of the audience who are here in the chat, it will be interesting to hear that partnerships is the basis, trust is the basis, more than certifications per se. And when you translate going green, it means that, together you build your value chain in a sense that is more sustainable. As you said, like if trees are a problem, we have to check with the suppliers how to solve certain resource management problems. Is that the case?
True, yes. It is. And as a partner, of course, you can say also together with your customer or without your customer, or also alone, like Michael and me do, probably say, okay, look, this is something you have to change, and this is something which is not acceptable anymore. Maybe it might be have been acceptable in the past, but this you have to change. So it is a process.
And maybe a few words for Michel as well, because
of course
Michel, how do you see these things? Is it similar, trust and building relationships?
Yes, I fully agree, and I think this used to be the old way of working. We lost it a little bit due to the bureaucracy, but I do think this is the best way of working. We have many suppliers or partners in this case that I have contact on WhatsApp to discuss business, and this is so much easier than all of the formalities. And as Jörn said, it's so much easier if you want to change anything. If there's a new regulation on our side regarding quality, we have to start measuring some analytical parameter that we didn't do before. It's much easier to just go in discussion with your partner if it's even possible. If not, maybe we send the sample to labs here, for instance. So these types of partnerships, they are very important, much more than a piece of paper. Because in the end, also for FSSC, it's easy if your supplier has FSSC certification. If they don't have it, you just you go there and you see it with your own eyes. You validate them, and that also works. And the added benefit is that you're there on the ground meeting the people. So I fully agree that partnerships are much more valuable and longer lasting than any intermediates that you're talking to.
Okay, thank you so much. And we have another 10-15 minutes left, and there's a few things that I still want to ask from you before we turn to some of the questions of the audience. What do you think is a major weakness with your suppliers, and what do you see as the, let's say, in the near future and the longer future, the two most important aspects that you require from your suppliers?
In terms of weakness, I wouldn't say that there's specifically a weakness bound to the suppliers. There's more, at least where we are sourcing, there's more threats, like environmental threats or geopolitical threats. I wouldn't consider it as a weakness, more as a threat. Jörn, if you know any weaknesses, please fill me in.
No, but
yeah,
I
I think. Oh well, I try on for that question. I try to reply positive, because we have a lot of challenges in several of our supply countries. Okay, for Europa, our two biggest supply countries are China and India right now. Okay, one thing is that China has a lot of capacity for many products, like, I don't know, it's not big for us, but vitamin C, ascorbic acid, I think they have a world market share of 97%. But let's say a product like Santam Gum, our supplier, I think it's the biggest in the world. He has a capacity of 48,000 tons, and he's so much bigger than us, but he is Chinese. So in this case, there is a challenge. The opposite. The challenge is we are much smaller than the supplier. He is stronger than us, and still we have to live with it, and still we have to find a solution. India is different because there are several products from India. They are only growing in India and neighbor countries. So it's probably, as a partner for us, let's call us the Western country, India is an easier way. Now I say it's a bit for us, these are the big two supply countries, but of course we buy all over the world. Also from the gum side is of course mainly the African continent, and there are a lot of challenges. And Michael was very polite and said, yes, the challenges are from the political side, and Africa and also South America. Okay, Europe has now learned the lesson. So we just concluded the Mercosur agreement, which is good for South America and which is good for us, but it needed 25 years. We are too slow. And by the way, the agreement with India took 16 years. 16 years with the biggest, with 1.4 billion people we needed, and we needed Mr. Trump that it was signed. Europe was too slow for that. So to say it very clearly, and I just said India is important for us because it's one of our two big supply countries of Africa. There's a lot of political challenges. And I have to say, from the political side, it's of course on the world map, because people sometimes forget. Also, Africa has 1 billion people. It's also a market. And China, I think, Michael, you will agree, or at any corner of Africa, I find Chinese investments, and I shall find Chinese interest, and I may like it, or we may like it or not. Some of our customers even invest in Africa. I do not like it. They go to Sudan and try to go to buy Gamma or Lebanon direct, and they pay in advance with local people. How you want to beat that? But in Africa, the China is not liked by everyone, so we have a lot of advantages, cultural also, from Europe. But of course, we have to offer something to them. And what we can offer is, I just mentioned it before, is we try to be partners not only for one business, and that is our chance. Like Michael's company or like our company, we will be there in another 10 years. We are there since 1891. We have a screenshot in our office with our own office in Omdurman from 1915. This means Roper is in Africa, present with own people since 100 years. So we know the continent, we know the people. At that time, it was colonial times, completely different, of course. But still, it diverse. If you work with a partner, you have to respect the partner. You must not agree with all points with him, but you say, okay, he has problems and a lot of challenges. So the weak point, I think, is the political point, and it is understood by European Union, also by German, Dutch, whatever government, but the big countries, they understood that we have to do more in Africa, help, whatever aid, but we should support them if they want to sell something to us, like organic products, which we just mentioned it a little bit. But instead of helping them, sometimes we, as Europe, totally complicate the thing. It's a challenge. We will overcome. So,
okay,
I think yes, this is a weak point. This is a weak point.
Yeah. So access to your resource base, linked to partnership. As a possible other threat is the sustainability of the resource. That is environmental threats, as Michel is referring to. And that's what requires.
And partly yes, partly yes, environmental stress, yes, but let's say we are stressed at Roper because we know that these sustainability projects from our customers, they are right. We know that. We know as much as we know that vanilla or Gamma Arabica is sustainable because they are regrowing product. I think vanilla, if I remember right, is a three years plant, every 3 years, but others have every year. But it's similar because the Gamma Arabic tree you also can only tap every 3 years. So it's more or less the same. But of course you have to wait, you have to be organized and things like that. What we should not do, and that's where we are the translator of the importing industry, if we really try to do this, what is the name? German name is Lieferkettengesetz, these sustainability supply chain law, to introduce this to Peru or to Brazil, or I mention now Brazil because they are part of Mercosur, or we try it in Africa. It is possible, but it will need time. And it will need time. Well, Michael, what do you think? 10 years? So if we think it's valid in 2027 and you will have a certificate, forget it. It's unrealistic. And that is where our political leaders have to learn. We are not sitting on an island. Yes, we are a market, Europe, European Union, 450 million, or at UK, so nearly 500 million. But yes, they want to follow our rules, but we should not the rules set to up. It would be something like you say to a high jumper, and the world record is maybe 240. Okay, Michael, until end of the year, I wait that you jump over 340. It's not possible. Or run the 100 meters in 8 seconds. Maybe in another 50 years it's possible. I don't know, but maybe there's a natural limit. So we understand that we cannot introduce this one-to-one to Africa, and I don't think it's a challenge for everyone. It's a challenge not only for, but of course for these countries, it's more challenging than for the rest.
Thank you. And I think that's coming to a good conclusion. And just a final question on that one. Two ways. If you are looking for new suppliers, what kind of platforms are you using, or what type of connections? Is it because people are sending you emails, or you meet them at trade fairs, or do you use particular platforms for this purpose?
For me, it's actually both. So I get approached by many suppliers through LinkedIn, which I think is a fantastic platform, but it's also the trade shows. The trade shows, I have to say, you have to be a bit lucky, because usually they've grown so big. We've got 1 million visitors at Anuga, for instance. You have to be lucky to run into the right person. So for me, LinkedIn is really the best way at this moment.
Okay. And you?
For us, yeah, okay, we have an own website, as we are active all over the world, also with exhibitions. Yes, you're right, Michael. Sometimes you have to be lucky. So we are on exhibition like Biofach, but also Biofach in other countries, other continents, even FIE, whatever. But the internet, your own website, they come to you. And I have to say also, we have an own office in China, by the way. It's also a sales office, but and also offices in several other countries like Italy, France, Russia, whatever. So they are sales office, but in China, of course, he's also handling our imports. But some of the products we get new into they come by recommendations. So we have been in Peru, for instance. We have been in the business of carmine, cochineal, nattoseed, or whatever. But then we started with nutraceuticals, and the supplier for quinoa or for chia, we didn't know, but we got them by recommendation. So we know local people, and we ask them, and we trust them, and they say, okay, I would say now, Michael, do you know a colleague who can offer me asparagus in Holland? So something like that.
I would know some good supplier for the quinoa, but we talk about that later. Yeah. I think also Eduard has stepped in, and maybe Gustavo can also step in. I understood there was one question from the audience also.
Yeah. Thank you, Bert-Jan. Yes, there are several questions coming in, but I think you can go through two of them. The first one that I see that it can be interesting for a lot of companies is from Jermaine. Jermaine from Kenya. He would like to know the minimum level of certification for exporting crops or herbs from Kenya to Europe, and maybe also to compare that minimum level to other world regions like the Emirates and the United States of America. So the minimum level of certification for exporting crops and herbs from Kenya to Europe.
That's a difficult question to start with. Thank you, Jermaine.
Yeah, not so easy.
No, I think it differs strongly on the crop. Correct me if I'm wrong. It differs very strongly on what crop it is. I myself have no idea what's the difference between the US and the Emirates. But for Europe, at least a phytosanitary report, and then depending on your product, you have to do some additional analysis on any trace amounts of, for instance, pesticides or contaminants, heavy metals. But this is really depending on the crop.
Yeah, we medical herbs we are not doing, so I know a little bit. We do some spice extracts from India and from China, so we call them oleosines, so like paprika extracts, things like that, paprika oils, whatever, because I know they are also produced in Africa. Well, for our products we work with specification. Let's start with that. So before we tell, let's say, a good supplier in Kenya, say, oh, you need an FSSC certification and whatever. Before we do that, which we will not do at the beginning, I think, we will say, okay, look, we buy this product and this is our specification. And if the specification, you just mentioned frankincense or olibanum or gamma arabic earlier, Bert. So then we say, okay, this is our purchase specification for gamma arabic. So who will test the product? Will we test the samples here? do you have a possibility to test them in your country? And then, Bert, it comes to the point that many times it is not possible even to test it in the country. Times are changing. Yeah, that's true. Times are changing. There are laboratories in Addis Ababa and in Nairobi. So this is going to change. That would be, of course, the best if a supplier for this product has an own laboratory. But it's not automatically necessary. If he's a collector of GAMS, he may not have it. So then we will have to make an agreement how you fix it to control this specification, and then comes the next step. I don't know, for instance, how it is with vanilla. Maybe vanilla, you test the vanillin content, or I don't know how fresh the goods are, or humidity. But these tests, I think they are not so very complicated, and that is the start. And then you go onwards, because that's why I always say, I think I said it to you, Bert, to start with organic at the beginning. Some people say, we start, everything is organic. I always say, yes, you can do organic, but this is for Europe now, right now, the most complicated thing. Why don't you start with the most complicated thing at the beginning? Why don't you start with a conventional product? And when this is running, maybe the next step is that you go on also organic. I know some people see this different, but it minimizes your risk, because at the end, this supplier in Kenya wants to sell something and we want to buy something, and when we want to bring it forward, we don't want to stop him or to block him and to tell him, if you don't have GMP and FSCC 22000, we cannot buy from me. Sorry, this is unrealistic. Right, Michael? At the beginning, this is not something which is going to work. Maybe this is the end after 5 years or so. Maybe, and some companies have. I know in Nigeria for gamma arabic, I remember in Kano there are production. They have laboratories, and they even have spray dry towers. So they produce in Nigeria gamma arabic spray dried. And the main issue there with the spray dry tower, what is it? It is water. The water is the problem. So not the technical thing. And in Kenya, I can imagine for some products, what is the main problem? Oh yeah, political safety, of course. It depends on the region. And it is energy supply. And I have a good friend who built a factory in Kenya near Nairobi. And he asked me, I said, well, where do you get your energy? He said, we decided to go to photovoltaic. So he's not depending on diesels. He's producing his own energy, so his is running. So I think that was a very clever decision. He still has a diesel generator for security, but that's only for emergency cases. So that's what I want to comment on this.
Yeah, I think that is also probably one of the reasons why some of that quinoa is being processed in Kenya for instance, for fever tree. And these technical requirements per country are indeed also very important when it comes to, let's say, post-harvest and then treatment. Yeah.
Yeah, but for the product, let's say for our product, it's relatively easy because the specifications are not so complicated. Because I don't know how is it in Michael's case with vanilla, for instance, but that's good for the supplier. There's in European legislation, so you have an E number, and the E number says very clearly what you have to fulfill. So the specification is on that, and it's not so complicated. It's easy to explain, and of course this is law. If it's for food, you have to follow this.
That's a good bridge, Jörn, to another question coming in from Indonesia. Mai Toyet is asking the following thing. He doesn't have any certification yet, but is a supplier of food additives from Indonesia. And he would like to know how he can prove to partners in Europe that his product can be valuable without a certification.
And so
who wants to pick up that challenge?
That will be difficult.
Yes.
Yeah, Michael, what do you think? I don't want to stop the guy, but
it's going to take a lot of persuasion for sure. Imagine, I think for Jörn it will be the same. So as a processor, we get offers probably on a daily basis from all sides of the world. Yes. We have to make a filtering system of all of these offers. And if I get in my email box or LinkedIn a random person saying, I have the best product in the world, then I will say, okay, prove it. And the easiest way to prove it is to have your certifications in place already. And I would say, I think that's also what Jörn just said. You don't have to have all of these certifications in place already, but you need to get started somewhere. Even the smallest certificate is already a certificate, and just do it as you go.
Well, it depends where you are selling it finally, but let's take, I just take one example for this, to reply this to the, it's maybe a bit much, but I have to tell him the truth. So we supply to the food industry. For instance, we supply from India a product which is called psyllium. It's only growing in India. So this is partly packed into packages here. So it has to be treated. It will be CO2 treated. It will be steam treated, whatever. So it's packed. So this is a product which is directly sold to the supermarket chains. So if you want to sell this to a supermarket chain, and the whole role of the supply chain, we all have to be BRC certified. So if you have no BRC certification or similar, you are out. So let's say any Indian supplier who has maybe a very nice, because this is not, they don't have their own plants or fields. They buy it from farmers via an auction, but they have very nice factories. But without these certificates, so that means BRC, sustainability certificates, and FSSC 20,000, like we have. So they have the same standard with like us in Hamburg, in Germany, and even higher, and it's going to be proved. If we say, okay, we supply now, let's say, to an example, to Tesco. I just mentioned Tesco because it's the biggest supermarket chain in UK. Tesco will say, are you BR certificate, and is your producer BRC certificate? So this automatically means I have to introduce you, this Kenyan guy, to my customer. So that's one of the things which, of course, I will only do if we trust each other, because I don't want that you sell him direct. But this is not the main problem. The main problem is we both has to be certified. And what Michael just said, I, as the importer, I have to control it. So I will, before I will introduce you, I will go to Kenya and will have a look if this is really true, what is on all the papers, which hopefully, because there's a certification, so it does not automatically mean it's not true, but I have to control it. Only then I will pass it on to a company like Tesco, and then the whole the whole approval process starts with samples or whatever. How much is your capacity? They will ask, how big is your company? Do you depend only on one product? All these questions coming next. But I have to say, with no certification in the food industry, I think, sorry to say it, you are out. Some of these products, like frankincense, which go to the perfumer industry and the cosmetic industry, maybe not so strict, but there are similar standards. Some of these companies ask even for GMP, which is nonsense in my opinion. Why it should be GMP process, but some Indian companies offer. So some Chinese companies offer. So this is competition. So you have to go with that. And I talk now about essential oils also. So that is more sophisticated. Huh?
Thank you very much, Jörn, for your valuable input. It's now 4:17 here, Central European time. I'm proposing you to make just a final round of main recommendations that you could make, Michel and Jörn, to our attendees. As you know, they're willing to win market shares on the European market. So what would be your main recommendation in terms of sustainability at this point?
That's a good question. I didn't have the answer prepared.
Yeah.
What would be on the top list? What would be the first thing you have in mind for them?
I think if it comes to sustainability, I think we also have to include transparency, because in the end, if you're not transparent on how you conduct your business, your buyer will find out, and then you will lose the buyer, and they will never come back again.
That's a good one. Jörn?
Yeah, it is true. I agree 100% to that. And it is finally, of course, it is communication. And you mentioned LinkedIn. I will mention now X or Twitter or TikTok. Whatever you think will not come out, it will come out, because the main problem is this: every person in this world, more or less, also in Kenya, or in India, has a mobile phone. So whatever you prove and whatever you certified on your certificates, the truth will come out. And yes, it's transparency. It is the old values, to be honest, to be serious, to have a long breeze. So I said it before. It has also to do with partnership, because your partner, of course, your partner you trust, but you await from your partner who says, okay, with that sustainability effort you ask me, that's too much, and then you have to say that's good. That's the first step. It's too much. So what can you do, and what can we do as Reuper or as Michael's company to help you to go the next steps? In some areas, it will be not possible, to be very frank. In some areas, it is just not yet possible. But let's do it step by step, and then I think we can succeed.
And maybe I can add one thing, Eduard, is that what I hear throughout the conversations is what Jörn was just mentioning again, partnerships, and that gives me also a bit of confidence for all the suppliers and potential companies who are attending to this, is that Gustavo brought up the aspect of finance, which is always a question. When you talk to suppliers in the many countries, it's always about, yeah, but who's going to finance the certifications? Who's going to finance this and this operation? The transparency, traceability. I think the good thing that we can learn from this conversation is that when the buyers like Jörn and Michel have trust and they are intended to build partnerships, then finance is less of an issue, because you build it together, and then that provides some security when you develop the business. And I think that's a very valid and good starting point for many of the suppliers. And what Michel said, start with one certification at a time, start with building trust with the buyers, and that's where it starts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bert-Jan. Maybe a final thought, Gustavo, also from your side before I close the session.
Yeah, don't forget to access the studies, because actually a lot of the things that we discuss here are discussed further, but also with ideas and further resources. So a lot of the things were mentioned here that maybe were so practical, such good examples. So you also can extend this knowledge if you access the modules, of course, in a more structured way and with some tips that are like written, not spoken, but this webinar and the studies, they complement each other. So if you guys want to have a general overview and also have access to further resources, please access the studies.
Thanks a lot, Gustavo. Thank you also, Bert-Jan, Michel, and Jörn. It was a very valuable this session, I think, for our focus group of SMEs that are willing to win market shares on the European market. Just before we end this session, as Gustavo told you, in this video and this session will be put on our website shortly. Feel free also to share it, as it will be sent to all of you, the attendees, to share it with your colleagues, share it with your contact persons around you that are interested in the European market, and go to our CBI market information portal to win extra input about food additives requirements in Europe. That's it for now. Thanks again to our speakers, and hope to see you soon in one of our future webinars or projects. And on behalf of Gustavo, Bert-Jan, Michel, and Jörn, I wish you a very nice day.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day, guys.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.